What if the wisest way to defeat an enemy is not to fight them yourself? What if, instead of relying on your own strengths, you could allow circumstances, relationships, and the interests of others to accomplish what force alone never could? Welcome back to Haein Philosophy. In this series, we are exploring the 36 Stratagems, one of the most influential works in the history of Chinese strategic thought. Although these strategies were written for times of war, they are not merely lessons about battle. They are lessons about human relationships. Today, we will explore the third stratagem, borrow a sword, kill another.借刀殺人. At first glance, the title sounds harsh, perhaps even cruel. It seems to suggest using another person, letting others suffer, while keeping your own hands clean. For this reason, many people dismiss this stratagem as nothing more than manipulation. But the classics are rarely so simple. Military philosophy does not teach us how to kill. It teaches us how power works. Today, rather than judging the title, let us read the original text carefully. Discover why this strategy is connected with Hexagram 41 of the I Ching, and ask what wisdom the ancient authors were really trying to teach. The original passage is remarkably short. Yet, within these few lines lies the entire philosophy of the third stratagem. Although only a few sentences long, every word has been chosen carefully. To understand the strategy, we must first understand its title. 제3개,借刀殺人. The first two characters are chado, literally borrow a sword. Notice what the text does not say. It does not say, take a sword. It does not say, steal a sword. It deliberately uses the word borrow. The single word changes the entire meaning of the stratagem. Borrowing implies consent. The owner of the sword still chooses to use it. The ancient strategist is not commanding another person. He is creating circumstances in which acting also serves the other person's interests. This is one of the greatest misunderstandings about the 36 stratagems. Many people imagine them as books of deception. In reality, they are books about understanding incentives. Strategy is rarely about controlling people. It is about understanding what motivates them, how interests align, and how circumstances naturally influence decisions. Borrowing strengths does not mean manipulating others. It means recognizing the forces already at work and aligning them to work in your favor. The next question is obvious. What exactly is the sword? In ancient warfare, it was literally a weapon, tool, knife. But in strategy, the sword is a metaphor. The sword may be political influence, public opinion, economic pressure, the law, international alliances, or even time itself. Anything capable of changing a situation can become the borrowed sword. Instead of asking, how can I become stronger? The strategist asks, what forces already exist, and how can they accomplish what I cannot? The second half of the title is 살인, literally to kill a person. Yet, Classical military texts often use the word kill in a broader sense. Victory does not always require destroying lives. Sometimes it means destroying an opponent's plan. It means breaking their alliances. It means removing their ability to continue fighting. In other words, the true objective is not violence. The true objective is changing the balance of the situation. This is why the third stratagem is not a lesson about cruelty. It is a lesson about achieving results without unnecessary expenditure of one's own strength. Let us now return to the original text. The first sentence reads, 적이명 우미정, 인우살적, 부자 출력. When the enemy is already known, but the potential allies have not yet chosen a side, throw those allies into the conflict. Let them confront the enemy while you do not exhaust your own strength. 적이명 우미정. Literally, the enemy is already clear, but the ally has not yet been decided. At first, this may seem like a simple description of a political situation. In reality, it is the foundation of the entire strategy. The text begins not with action, but with observation. Before making a move, the strategist first asks, what kind of situation am I actually facing? The first answer is simple. The enemy is already clear. This means more than simply knowing who the enemy is. It means knowing their intentions, their strengths, their weaknesses, and where they are going. A conflict becomes far less dangerous once the nature of the opponent has been clearly understood. The greatest danger is uncertainty. When you cannot distinguish friend from enemy, every decision becomes a risk. Therefore, the first task of every strategist is not to attack. It is to see clearly. The second phrase says, 우미정. The ally has not yet been decided. Notice the wording. The text does not say, there are no allies. It says, they have not yet chosen a side. That difference is extremely important. Most people see uncertainty as a weakness. A strategist sees uncertainty as possibility. Someone who has not yet chosen can still be persuaded. Their interests can still change. Their position is still flexible. In other words, the future has not yet hardened. The single sentence describes the moment just before the story takes its final shape. Because once every side has committed itself, the opportunities become much smaller. The Asian strategist therefore asks a different question. Instead of asking, how do I defeat my enemy? He first asks, who has not yet decided? Sometimes, the neutral party is more important than the enemy itself. Winning them may accomplish what fighting never could. The next line reads, 인우살적. The enemy in, let the enemy confront the enemy. 부자 출력. Do not expand your own strength. Again, every word matters. The first character is in, meaning to draw, to lead, or to attract. Notice what it does not mean. It does not mean to command, nor does it mean to force. The strategist does not drag people onto the battlefield. Instead, he creates a situation in which joining the conflict appears to be the other side's best decision. There is a profound difference. People rarely resist their own interests. Rather than fighting against that current, he allows it to carry him forward. The next phrase says, do not expand your own strength. This does not mean doing nothing, nor does it mean avoiding responsibility. It means avoiding unnecessary effort. If the same result can be achieved through a better arrangement of circumstances, why insist on paying the highest possible price? The greatest strategist is not the one who uses the greatest amount of force. It is the one who achieves the greatest result with the least expenditure of strength. That idea will lead us to the final sentence of the passage, where the authors tell us that this entire strategy comes from the philosophy of the I Ching. Specifically, the hexagram called decrees, 손. We now arrive at the final line of the original text, 이 손 추연. This strategy is developed from the hexagram of degrees in the I Ching. At first, this sentence may seem surprising. Why would a military strategy refer to an ancient book of philosophy? The answer reveals something essential about Chinese thought. The 36 stratagems were never intended to be merely a collection of clever tricks. Their authors believed that successful strategy must follow the default patterns by which the world itself operates. Strategy, therefore, is not separate from philosophy. It is philosophy applied to action. That is why the authors point us not to another battle, but to the I Ching. The hexagram is called degrees. What does degrees really mean? At first, that sounds like weakness. Many people assume that to decrease means to lose something, to become smaller, to become less powerful. But that is not what the I Ching means. Decrease does not always mean having less. Sometimes it means removing what is unnecessary. Sometimes it means using less force, so that greater possibilities can emerge. In other words, the purpose of decrease is not loss. It is balance. This is exactly where the third stratagem begins. Before valuing another person's strength, you must first reduce your own need to control everything. If you insist that every victory must come through your own effort, then you will never see the opportunities already unfolding around you. Only after we reduce our own attachment to direct action can we recognize the strengths that already exists within the situation. The original text leaves one question unanswered. The 36 stratagems never specify which line of the hexagram they are referring to. To better understand this principle, many commentators have turned to the third line of hexagram 41 of the I Ching, which reads 3인 즉 손 1인, 1인 행 즉 득기우. 3 people work together and one must be reduced. One person works alone and finds a true companion. It is clearly not speaking about arithmetic. It is speaking about relationships. Why? 3 is too many in the I Ching. Harmony usually appears through the relationship between complementary forces. When too many interests become entangled, balance becomes difficult. 3 people in this line symbolize a situation filled with competing interests. Different goals, different expectations, different ambitions. The more these interests become entangled, the harder it becomes for anyone to move forward. Therefore, the text says, one must be reduced. This does not mean abandoning a person. It means removing unnecessary complexity, simplifying the relationship so that harmony can emerge once again. Imagine 3 forces, yourself, your enemy, and a third force that has not yet chosen a side. The third stratagem offers a different approach. Instead of forcing yourself into the center of the conflict, step back. Reduce your own direct involvement. Allow the third party to act according to its own interests. Without exhausting your own strengths, you have allowed the circumstances to accomplish what direct force could not. That is the philosophy of decrease. The philosophy is elegant, but did it ever work in reality? His story gives us an answer. His name was Bomsu. During the Warring States period, the state of Jin was becoming the strongest kingdom in China. Yet, strength created its own problem. The stronger Jin became, the more enemies it attracted. If Jin had attempted to fight every neighboring state at the same time, even the most powerful army would eventually have been exhausted. Military strength alone was not enough. Jin needed a different strategy, Bomsu's advice. When Bomsu became chief minister, he proposed a policy that later became famous. Befriend the distant, attack the near. 원교 근공. The advice seems obvious, but its brilliance lies elsewhere. Bomsu did not simply tell Jin which country to attack. He first changed the political landscape. Instead of creating more enemies, Jin formed friendly relations with distant kingdoms. Those distant states had little reason to fear Jin's immediate expansion. Meanwhile, Jin focused its military efforts only on its neighboring rivals. The result was exactly what Bomsu had anticipated. The nearby kingdoms found themselves isolated. Unable to depend on distant allies, they faced Jin one by one, instead of as a united coalition. Notice what happened. Jin did not defeat every kingdom through military force alone. It first reshaped the relationships between states. Diplomacy became its sword, distance became its ally. The competing interests of other kingdoms became a source of strength. This is precisely what the third stratagem means. Borrowing strength does not require forcing others to fight for you. Recognizing where interests already exist and arranging circumstances so that those interests naturally move in your favor. Jin did not have to fight every battle. It first changed the conditions under which those battles would be fought. That is strategy. Today, Very few of us carry swords. Yet the principle has not changed. Only the sword has changed. A wise leader does not ask, "How can I solve this alone?" Instead, they ask, "What forces already exist? Who already shares this interest?" That question often produces far better results than direct confrontation. The same principle appears far beyond the battlefield. Imagine a small company trying to compete with an industry giant. If it chooses a direct fight, it may exhaust its money, its people, and its time. Instead, it may introduce a new technology, solve an overlooked market, or adapt to changing regulations, rather than fighting the strongest competitor head-on. It changes the conditions of competition. The market itself begins to work in its favor. Again, the company has borrowed a different kind of sword. This brings us to the true lesson of the third stratagem. It is not about making others suffer, nor is it about avoiding responsibility. It begins with the wisdom of the I Ching. Before trying to control the world, learn first to reduce your own attachment to direct action. 이손취연. This strategy is developed from the principle of degrees in the I Ching. Not every problem must be solved by your own hands. Not every victory must be won through your own strength. Sometimes the greatest wisdom is to understand the larger flow of events, to recognize the interests already at work, and to move with them rather than against them. That is the meaning of borrow a sword to kill another. Not borrowing another person's weapon, but borrowing the power already hidden within the circumstances themselves. In our next episode, we will explore the fourth stratagem, wait it easy while the enemy labors. Until next time, thank you for listening. This has been Haein Asian Philosophy.